This story doesn't start in Gabon. It starts with a country that opened a drawer and found billions of dollars it didn't know it owed. The money wasn't stolen, it wasn't sitting in some offshore account. It was written into a country's own books and hardly anyone had seen it. In 2024, Senegal's new government took office and asked for a full account of what the state owed. Everything, every line. What came back changed how Africa talks about debt. There were debts that had never showed up in the official books. Money the country owed for years and hardly anyone knew. Reuters reported that 2 years on, Senegal was still working out exactly how much it owes and to who. And that's the question I couldn't shake. What if Senegal wasn't the only exception? Because a few hundred kilometers down the same coastline, somebody was already asking it.
Il faut qu'on s'asseye sur une table et qu'on négocie. Et avec le FMI, je l'ai dit, nous allons arriver à un programme où nous allons signer. Mais je n'ai pas envie d'aller dans un programme si ma dette n'est pas auditée. Donc c'est nous-mêmes qui avons demandé l'audit. C'est moi qui demande l'audit.
Gabon kept working with international lenders. In April 2026, it signed a $150 million agreement with the World Bank. And then almost immediately, it did something hardly anybody covered. It ordered a full audit of its own public debt. Take the money, question your own numbers. That sounds backward, and I wanted to know why. The answer took me through a bribery case in Kenya. A fight over Africa's biggest copper mines in Zambia. Oil Angola hasn't even pumped yet. And a warning the World Bank has been quietly putting out about its own lending. You see, by the end of this, you will see why Gabon isn't refusing development. It's refusing to sign first and ask questions later. So back in April, and what that commission was actually told to do. One job, go through the country's debt line by line and find out what's really there. Financial Africa put it plainly, build credibility with the IMF. Now most coverage stopped right there. Country audit debt. Then they move to the next story. You see, a headline tells you what happened. It won't tell you why anyone would do it that way. Digging out that part is why this channel exists. So why now? What made a government decide its own word wasn't good enough anymore? The trail starts somewhere I didn't expect. A tire company, Goodyear, according to the US Securities and Exchange Commission. Goodyear's subsidiary paid more than $3 million in bribes over 4 years to win business in Kenya and Angola. And the SEC said those payments sat in the books as regular business expenses. Money doesn't need a good hiding place when nobody's checking. It only needs to look boring. So if a bribe can hide in a company's books, what can a loan hide in a country's? That told me how money disappears. It didn't tell me how a country would turn around and audit itself. So I kept pulling. And the next one, you can see from space. In 2019, Zambia rattled the entire global mining industry. Reuters reported that Zambia moved against Vedanta, the Indian mining giant, and put a provisional liquidator over Angola copper mines. Angola is enormous and thousands of jobs sit on the top of that hole in the ground. And copper is the metal every electric car, every solar panel, every battery on earth needs more of. Reuters reported Vedanta got control back in 2023. By 2024, the company said it had paid around $246 million just to restart the place, with roughly $1 billion more still needed. By June 2026, Bloomberg reported Vedanta's unit was eyeing a New York listing to fund those same copper mines. 7 years and it still isn't finished. 7 years of somebody's payslip, depending on the court date, they have no influence or control over it. But a mine is still there when the fight ends. You can lose 7 years, but still own the copper. Angola's version doesn't work like that. Now imagine waking up tomorrow and finding out that the oil your country hasn't yet pumped is already spoken for. Reuters reported that about 80% of Angola's debt sits in foreign currency, oil-backed loans from China, and a billion-dollar facility from JP Morgan. So how does a country end up owing oil it hasn't pumped? A country needs cash today. The lender wants security. The country pledges tomorrow's oil. The money comes in, and a piece of the future walks out of the door. Now, you would think that trade would run for a long time. Then somebody put a date on it. In 2026, the IMF warned Angola's debt would hit its ceiling in the medium term. Then the oil price drops, your ability to repay shrinks, the obligation doesn't move an inch. And that's when the lender starts having opinions about your national budget. A national budget is teachers' salaries, whether a clinic gets restocked, whether the road to the market gets finished. You see, debts build roads on this continent, schools, ports, power stations. The dangerous kind is the debt nobody fully understood, backed by something the country couldn't afford to lose. You know how it gets with the leaking roof. You never find a crack when it's dry. You find it when the rain is already in the house. You see, 3 countries, 3 different disasters, and I couldn't still tell you why Gabon signed and audited in the same month. Because the answer wasn't in any of them. It wasn't something that happened 40 years ago. Ask anyone who lived in the 80s and 90s in a lot of African countries what structural adjustment meant to them. You won't get a calm answer. The promise was reform your country and we will help you grow. According to research, what plenty of countries got was deep spending cuts and weaker public services. Somebody's mother queued longer in a clinic because of a line of a loan agreement she never even saw. So when your finance minister hears support package today, that phrase arrives carrying 40 years of memory. You see, there is an old line that covers it. The hand that keeps giving becomes the hand that decides, which is where I expected this to end. History made Gabon cautious. Clean answer. Then I found something I wasn't looking for. The World Bank agrees. The same institution sitting across the table from Gabon has been publicly pushing for what it calls radical debt transparency, full disclosure of loan terms, stronger oversight of public borrowing. The lender is telling the borrower to read the paperwork carefully on loans the lender is part of. There is pressure behind that too. Department of Justice UK has publicly alleged the World Bank broke its own rules on high-interest lending to Ghana. So by now you will expect Gabon to be pulling back, getting careful with the checkbook, slowing everything down. Gabon never stopped borrowing. The audit went up, the World Bank deal got signed, and Gabon kept going back to the international markets for more. So ask yourself the question this whole video is named after. If Gabon were really refusing development, will it still be signing deals? It won't. Gabon wants money. What it stopped doing is taking money on trust alone. You see, the audit is the price of entry now. Show the books, then we talk about the next deal. And Gabon isn't on this alone. S&P Global reported that African governments are set to borrow around $150 billion in 2026 alone. S&P also warned that Africa faces a $90 billion debt wall in 2026. Repayments falling due across many countries, roughly all at once. Gabon is simply the first one you happen to notice saying it out loud. So back to the drawer in Senegal and the bill nobody knew was inside it. Somebody in Libreville looked up the cost of all that and decided they would rather find out now than find out later. For decades, this was a story about access. Can we get the money? Can we close the deal? Now it's about verification. Can we prove that we already owe to ourselves before we owe anybody anything more? You see, you can't negotiate what you haven't counted, and proof is fast becoming Africa's new form of leverage. Now let me hand this one to you, and I want an actual answer in the comments. If you were running the finance ministry anywhere on this continent, which one comes first? sign the deal and check the books later, or do what Gabon did and flip the order. Because that one call might be the whole difference between the next Gabon and the next Senegal. See you in my next video.